grandmother was right. The boogeyman was real.
It's over.
We can't hurt anyone ever again.
No one told you.
Told me what?
Somebody in there?
Michael Myers is alive.
Stop! You had a knife in your stomach.
You and Allison should not have to keep running. Evil dies tonight.
I'm not just gonna sit and watch another innocent person die.
If you track Michael's victims, that's a straight line to Michael's childhood home.
What do we do?
We fight.
Let's hunt him down.
Michael Myers is flesh and blood. But a man couldn't have survived that fire. The more he kills, the more he transcends.
Run! Go now!
He's the essence of evil.
Do it! Do it! You want your mask? Come and get it!
I'm coming for you, Michael.
Welcome to Slash, a horror movie podcast. In season 1 of Slash, we will be covering every movie in the Halloween film franchise, starting with the original 1978 John Carpenter classic, and ending with the 2022 Halloween Ends. Or does it? Slash is available everywhere podcasts can be found. You can follow Slash on Twitter at /horror. And you can find every episode of Slash at fansnotexperts.com/slash. Enjoy the show. And remember, it's fun to be scared. Hello, friends, and welcome back to Slash, where today we are talking about Halloween Kills from 2021. This is the second movie in the David Gordon Green Halloween trilogy. And first of all, thank you everyone for subscribing and finding the last episode. It's been a few months since I did one, and I want to appreciate and say thank you to everyone who has who found it and subscribed. I appreciate it oh so much. So this Halloween Kills, it came out in 2021. Originally it was supposed to come out a little earlier because of the whole pandemic thing that happened that pushed it back. Just to give you some quick details, it had a budget of $20 million. I wrote less than Zombie's Last Mess, but I think that was for the last one. I don't think I deleted that. I don't want to talk about Rob Zombie ever again, unless I do a Rob Zombie retrospective music podcast, which I never will. So this had a running time of 105 minutes. It's right there with the last one. And yet it's still, it wasn't as big a success, but there's a reason for that. I had a box office of 90 million, 92 million, and another 41 million internationally. Again, I said it was released October 15th, 2021, but not just in theaters. So I'm going to go through some of the Slashopedia. I took a couple things from Wikipedia, not too much this time. But it says in June 2019, it was reported that a sequel would begin filming in September 2019, with Green, of course, returning to write the script and direct the movie. Jeremy Lee Curtis, Judy Greer, and Matichak. I wrote down her name, and I only have her last name here because I took it right from Wikipedia. But they all reprised their roles from the 2018 film. On July 8th, 2019, Bloody Disgusting reported that the studio was not only considering filming 2 sequels back-to-back, but also releasing both of them in October 2020. That's crazy. That's crazy. Releasing both movies together at the same time. I mean, I guess trying to get people to go to see both at once and make a giant killing and kind of bite while the I was going to say bite while the apple is hot, but that is not a thing. Strike while the iron is hot, I believe is the correct one, which again, I think has something to do with blacksmithing. I don't know. But the film, obviously that didn't happen. The film was originally set to be theatrically released on October 16th, 2020. Of course, in July 2020, because of the pandemic, it was delayed till October 15th, 2021. Now, here's where I got excited. On September 9th, it was announced that in addition to being released in theaters, the film would also be streamed on Peacock, on the paid tiers of Peacock for 60 days. And I remember being very excited about Halloween Kills. I loved the first movie, and I was like, all right, they're doing a trilogy. It's called Kills and Ends. This is great. I am pumped. And I was excited for this movie. And after looking back on it last week, after looking back on the last one, I really did still enjoy it. But, when 2021 came around for me, I was still like leery of going to movies, going to public places with crowds. I'd been to a concert or 2, I think, maybe by late 2021, but I was still wearing masks there. It just made me feel better. I don't care what anyone else thought. In fact, I actually didn't see a movie in the theater in 2020, 2021, or 2022. It wasn't until I saw The Flash this past summer that I went to the theater, which I've been now a few times to see a few movies. But I was one of the few that actually saw The Flash. It was a good movie. So when I saw this movie was being released on Peacock, I was really happy because I had a Peacock subscription. And I didn't get it because I thought I need to watch this. I need to watch that. I actually did sign up for Peacock for AP Bio, which was just a very underrated, great show with Glenn Howerton from Sunday Philadelphia. But anyway, the reason I really have Peacock is because of WWE. So to let you in, for those who don't know, yes, wrestling, they had their own streaming network. They did their own thing. They basically used to do a pay-per-view every month and charge you $50, which I would never, ever do. I think my brother and I would get one pay-per-view a year. But then they moved to a model which was $9.99 a month, and you get all the streaming stuff and you get all the pay-per-views. And I was like, okay, technically they're charging less to watch a pay-per-view, but they're getting me to pay every month instead of once a year. Okay, I'll do that. And then a couple of years later into it, they said, okay, we've made a deal with Universal, NBC, and all our pay-per-views and everything's moving over to Peacock. So if you have an account, you'll be transition right into Peacock. And there you go. I had Peacock and I was ready to watch Halloween Kills. I was so happy. I remember making popcorn, cracking open a soda pop. I sat down on my couch on opening night at the theater to myself because it was my couch, and got ready to watch the movie. I knew it was back. I knew it was following the last story, because the last story really didn't it kind of ended, but it didn't quite. We didn't know where things were going. There was nothing definite, and I didn't know much about what we were going to see as far as where we went, and I thought that was kind of cool. I actually did enjoy that, but before we get there, it picks up pretty much exactly where we left off with Cameron, that jerk who cheated on Allison. Well, yeah, he kissed another girl. To me, that's cheating. Boom. And then he took her phone, threw it in the punch. I mean, what a dick. So he's walking home from the dance, and he calls his buddy Oscar. He's like, oh, hey, Oscar, pick up. Where are you? But we got to remember, Oscar's dead, baby. He is on that fence. He is part of a gate. He is just, he is not alive. But you know who is alive? He notices that Officer Hawkins, he's like, hey man, hey, you over there? And he goes over to see Hawkins. You think he's dead, but Hawkins is like, I'm not dead. Whoa. He goes, he needs to die. And he's like, what are you talking about? He's like, he needs to die. The one who's gonna get him. And then boom, we flash back to 1978. And I wrote down, I was not expecting this. And I remember loving this. Okay, so maybe I didn't know about this. But I kind of love how they did this. So what we see here is generally, or I guess this is how he got to, remember in the beginning of Halloween 2018, you're like, he's in a facility. How did he get here? The last thing we saw was Loomis looked over the balcony and he's like, oh no, he's gone. And ding, 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 ding. And you saw all these corners and he could be anywhere. Perfect ending. Of course, they couldn't end it. You get all these sequels, they're all erased. So what does happen? Well, what happens is people are told, there's a dude out there and we need to, find him. And this is what we see what happened after the original film to get him captured and sent off to, his facility. We see there's cops out there looking for him. We see young Hawkins. So there's Hawkins. We see a flashback. Remember, he said he was there that night. See a young Hawkins, and we see another cop, Jim Cummings, who is an actor who I'm starting to become familiar with. He plays Officer Pete McCabe, and my friend Chris is a big fan of Jim Cummings. He actually was in if you saw the last episode of Barry, he played the actor who was playing Barry in the story of Barry. That if you know what I'm talking about. But they're talking about they need to find this Michael Myers guy, and McCabe's like, yeah, I used to know him. I knew him when he was a kid. And he said how he talked about how he was a real quiet kid. He would just stare out his sister's window. I guess one day he just snapped. And we cut over and there's some real little shits. I'll just call them. And this actually movie has a lot of little shits in them. So these little shits are picking on a young Lonnie. Now we saw Lonnie for 2 seconds. I think maybe we saw him picking on Tommy at the school. Did he bump into him? No, Tommy bumped into him. I don't remember. It was 78. And then, but in this, then we see Loomis saying, "Hey, Lonnie, get the hell out of here," or whatever. I never remember, but it was just Loomis, standing there doing absolutely nothing. So, we see this Lonnie. Now we're seeing him getting picked on by a bunch of little jerks, and they call themselves, this is what you get when you F with the Mulaney's. And so cops tell the kids, what are you doing? Don't you know you got to get home and lock your doors? Now, look, I'm no officer of the law. I'm not even a parent. I have a niece and nephew. And how would I deal with them if I drove up and saw them? Or how would I feel if a police officer drove up to them, basically knowing there's a crazy killer on the loose, say, hey guys, you should get home. Okay, good luck. And then he leaves. No, officer, maybe put the kids in the car and drive them home. It takes 5 minutes. What the F? Okay. Luckily, we don't hear about any children murders that night. So the Mulaney's run off and Lonnie's left alone to run home. He runs along and trips. And of course, when he trips, Michael is right there. And Lonnie's like, I'm sorry for tripping Tommy Doyle and picking on him. Like he thinks Michael's going to kill him. And Michael doesn't kill kids back in the 70s. Obviously, we know what happens in 2018. But in the 70s, Michael, he still has a code. No kids, just teens, grown-ups, and dogs. So he covers himself. He's like afraid, to see what's going on. And no one's there. He looks up and there's no one there. There's kids, there's cops there. And they're like, hey man, what are you doing? He's like, well, they get home. So Lonnie runs off. And now the cops are right in front of the Myers house. So of course they go in. What do they see in there? They find the dead dog, which I still say to this day, Michael Myers ate that dog. When they said he was feeding, I have a friend who still be like, no, he didn't eat the dog. Oh, he ate the dog. He ate it. And this flashback does kind of lead to the end of the movie. It is kind of a precursor because what does he do? He goes home. Right after the killing, why wouldn't he go home? They kind of make sense that that's what he's looking for when you watch this movie. That does kind of work. So they hear a noise. They go upstairs. Pete finds the broken glass, but that's the glass that broke when Loomis and what's his name, Chief. I can't think of his name. I'm Noah will remember it because we'll see it later. But that guy, and Loomis are there. The glass breaks, right? But he looks down and he sees footprints, and he's like, and I see the footprints. I'm like, get out of there, McCabe. He's like Haddonfield, where nothing ever happened. Oh no, Michael! Michael jumps out of nowhere. He starts choking the cop, and he's like, he's hitting, McCabe, and Hawkins comes in. He's like, golly, what do I do? And McCabe's like, and he goes to shoot. Boom! He shoots McCabe right in the neck. Squirt, 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 bleeding. All these other cops arrive, and you hear Loomis going, "The evil is here," and the guy's doing Loomis pretty good. So there's a bunch of cops outside. Michael heads right outside. McCabe dies upstairs with Hawkins, and he comes down, and we actually see a pretty good CGI Loomis. He's like, did Michael kill? Did he kill? And you figure, he's going to blame the death on Michael. Hawkins is. And we don't see it right now. And I'm not adding that kill to the kill count because even though Michael is technically responsible for it, he didn't actually kill this guy, and it's a flashback, so it shouldn't matter at all. So it's a pretty great shot of Michael on the front lawn, very much reminiscent of him as a kid on the same lawn when his parents took the mask off and they all just stood there and they waited. The camera went away and no one did anything. Remember that? But this time there's like a bunch of cops there, all pointing their guns at him, and he doesn't move. And we don't see what goes on from there. We just see all these cops. We see him frozen, and boom, Halloween Kills. The credits come in. Blink, 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 blink. Now we see a bunch of pumpkins in various stages of being on fire. In the credits, I do appreciate that they put Charles Cyphers, Nancy Stevens, and Kyle Richards all on the same title card, since they're all reprising their roles from the original movie. Of course, we have other characters that are showing up in the original movie, from the original movie, but it's not the same actors. And, of course, Nancy Stevens has been there. This isn't her second rodeo. She was also in Halloween 2. She was also in H2O, where, of course, Michael already killed her. So now we jump over to Halloween night 2018. So basically, we're present day at the bar. And remember, it's 2018. That year, to me, is very important with how some of the things in this movie go or don't go. So we're at the bar, and we see this husband and wife watching a talent show, African-American couple. I'm pretty sure they're the same ones we saw leaving a house to go out in the last movie, because we saw a nurse, a woman dressed as a nurse, and a guy dressed as a doctor. And they're trying to enjoy the talent show, but there's some really loud people drinking, and someone mentions Tommy's name, and I think they say Lonnie, and the husband's like, oh, those guys are really loud. It's like, the bartender's like, don't let them bother you. They come out here every Halloween, tears in their beers. So Lonnie calls Tommy up on stage. Again, it's like, this is like, hey, audience, in case you don't know, here is some exposition for you. And I feel like that happens a lot. He's like, the great Tommy Doyle is going to come up here and do a bird whistle. Lonnie was just putting him on the spot, but he really goes up there to tell a story. And he basically, he saw the movie in 1978. He tells the story of Halloween. So we see it's Lonnie sitting there, Nurse Chambers. For some reason, they all hang out. Even though Nurse Chambers was in Halloween for the first 5 seconds, they slapped the glass. She drove off, and she's like, oh my goodness gracious. Now I'll be forever friends with these 3 kids from the neighborhood that I don't know about, and I never visited, and I don't know. So logically, makes 0 sense. But okay, she's hanging out with Lonnie, who is not the Lonnie from the movie. Obviously, he's an actor who I've seen in things like Midnight Mass. That's like the thing I remember him the most from. But of course, she's Nurse Chambers originally, and Lindsay, played by Kyle Richards, who my wife knows as a Real Housewife. And I say, no. She actually shows she has some acting chops here. I don't care about that housewife stuff. I have no interest in it at all. But they're all at the bar, and Tommy's like, here we're remembering the victims and survivors. And he tells he tells everyone at the bar, he's basically, for the people watching, these are who they are in case you don't remember them. And he says, we will never succumb to fear. This is for Laurie, wherever you are. And that was kind of cool because boom, we cut to exactly where Laurie is. We know where Laurie is. She's in the back of that truck and she's bleeding, and she's with her daughter and her granddaughter, and they're bleeding in the back of the truck. And as they go by, as they're getting to the hospital, firefighters are driving the other direction. For some reason, I thought this was at the end of Halloween 2018. I remembered it differently. And she's like, no, let him burn. Let him burn. And then, to me, we cut to what I think is probably the best part of this movie. And I said, if I remember this correctly, and going forward, if you go throughout the whole movie, looking back, because I rewatched it finally. I'm going to say this is the best part of the movie. It's the most fun part, at least. So the firefighters show up and they start taking down the flames, knocking down the fire, I think is the term. One of them falls through they see the basement gates, they fall through it, and Michael's like right there. And it's freaky. He's like, his mask looks like it must be hot as hell in there. Like, that's very uncomfortable. But he goes over, he takes the fireman's like pickaxe, or like, I forget, I wrote down what it is. It's like a forcible entry tool. And he's like, I'm going to pickaxe your face. Yeah. And he chops him right in the face. And so we have our first dead, kill count number 1. Another firefighter comes over. He's like, you down there, Jimmy? I know his name's not Jimmy, but I'm saying that. He's like, take my hand. He leans his hand over. He's like, take my hand, take my hand. And Michael Myers is like, I'll take your hand and the rest of your life. And he grabs him, pulls him down. Boom, we hear, ah. Now, kill count 2. But when we hear the scream, the other firefighters in the house are like, what the hell? So they turn around and we get this great shot. And it's actually the green screen, or the picture. It's the picture in the show notes. It's the picture for the blog post, and it's the background of this video. It's Michael coming out of the house, holding that tool, holding that pickaxe, that forcible entry tool. And he's going to forcibly entry, into some of these guys' brains, I'm afraid. But he holds it and he stands there. And I do love that the firefighters also, they hold their axes. They don't run. Now, they should have. They probably should have, but they don't run. They just kind of stand there. And then they start spraying him with a hose. And I'm thinking, that probably makes him feel better. It might help. I don't know what it's supposed to be doing. And so he just goes bananas. Chop, kill, stab. Oh, you have a circular saw? Let me turn it in circular, saw your face off. And I wrote down 5, I believe. I didn't check this with anywhere. I counted 5 killed, but I'm not sure because, but whoever was there, they're dead now. So right now I'm saying already we have a kill count of 7 of those firefighters. We jump back over to the hospital where I think Laurie just hangs out for the rest of the movie in the hospital. Like, she does not leave the hospital. Karen says her name right now. She's like, my mother, Laurie Strode. And we see this old security guy. He's like, huh? Laurie Strode? Oh, that's a name I haven't heard in a long time. And of course, we zoom in on his name tag and it says Brackett. And aha, that was his name, Chief Brackett, from the 1978 Halloween. Michael actually killed his daughter. That was in the car, I believe, right? Annie. So we see Brackett there. He's like, what the hell? And Allison's there covered in blood. Karen's covered in blood, cleaning blood off. Someone's like, are you okay, to Allison? She's like, it's not mine. It's not my blood. She's cleaning the blood off her wedding ring. She's in tears. I mean, it's really, really bad. We see Laurie in surgery, but we find out she's going to be okay. We cut over to a house where all of a sudden we see this older couple. And I don't recognize the woman. But the dude, the husband, is Lenny Clark. Now, Lenny Clark, I guess he lives in Chicago by way of Cambridge. And there's the wife is like, she's into drones. And the husband, he's like, what are you doing? That's the drone in the other room. Basically, let me put it this way. Lenny Clark's Boston accent is so strong that his name is Lenny Clark. He's like a kind of a Boston comedian legend. He's from Cambridge, but he's been on TV shows with Dennis Leary, another Boston comedian. But he's toured around here. I've seen him with my brother. My wife went to see him with her friends. Like, he's a big time, stand-up comedian, still going to this day. But I don't know, they wanted to put him, and this is like, there are other comedians in this movie, but they wanted to put him in this for a second. And he actually has a pretty funny second. when he goes into the bathroom, turn his light on, Michael Myers is in there. He smashes the light, and he screams, closes the door. You think he's dead right there, but he screams and closes the door, and he's like, Sandra, there's a big fella in our bathroom, and he's wearing a monster mask. Like that was the best line. He's wearing a monster mask. And my thinking is, it's 2018. Why isn't the whole town on lockdown? I understand in 78, maybe they don't have that big of a police presence. But at this point, when a hospital or a prison bus crashes, and there are people unaccounted for, and one of them is a killer who killed people in this town, maybe have the whole town on alert. The lack of news coverage and cell phone coverage that used in this movie is a little insulting to common sense, but okay. I guess, I don't know. But then he comes out, he starts smashing Lenny to bits. He grabs a fluorescent light, just walks up and stabs the woman. It's, kind of just matter of factly. It was weird. And she bleeds out as Michael finishes Lenny off. He stabs him with one knife. Then he grabs and stabs him with another knife. And it's like he's getting mesmerized, like kill. And he's stabbing with all these different knives. Then he takes the last knife and he's like, well, this one I'm going to keep. And he walks out the door. I don't know. I guess that's how he gets his new weapon, even though he had some cool weapons from those firefighters. But he loves the butcher knife. That is the weapon du jour. So we're now at a kill count of 9. Can you believe that already? We jump back to the bar, and the married couple, they're apologizing to Tommy. He's like, oh, I don't know who you are. Let me buy you some rounds. And Cameron, Lonnie's son, calls him. He's like, we need help, Dad. I need help. And now we see that the cops all know what's going on because everyone's with Cameron. And now everybody in the bar, their phone starts pinging. They put on the news and they show that 2 inmates have been unaccounted for. And that's important. We see the face of one inmate, and then the focus pulls. And I do like how they did this. The focus pulls, so the second inmate that they show, you don't see his actual face. But in this movie, they say, I saw his face. Well, we know who these inmates are, correct? So if we see the faces of these 2 inmates, wouldn't it be responsible, beholden of the local authorities, the news, to say, hey, this other guy, he's a big time killer. Like, nobody says that. And it seems like in common sense, it would be said. Now it couldn't be said for this movie. It's like sometimes, things don't happen so that things can happen in a movie, where I think it'd be better if all the common sense things do happen and you still have to figure it out. And that's what makes a really good script, with all the things that should happen in the world today with technology do happen, but you still have to write around that instead of shoving it into the corner and just like pushing that aside so that you can write your story. To me, that's to me. We actually see Julian from the first movie. He talks about how his best babysitter is dead. And the married couple, they're like, I recognize that little shit. He's the kid who lives across the street from us. So they're about to go. Lindsay's like, what the hell's going on? And Tommy's like, this has to be Michael. So the wife goes to the car and she's like, someone's in the car. She thinks it's Michael. She runs back in the bar. Again, thinking that someone is Michael in this movie is a theme. Thinking this short little stumpy dude is Michael is a theme. This guy, she runs right back into the house. She's like, someone's in the car. So Tommy grabs the bat. He puts a tip in a donation box. He grabs it back because he's going to go out there because Tommy's tough. And he says, love lives today. And the box actually says love lives today on it. So he puts a donation in the box, I guess because he borrowed the bat. But either way, it's the donation box's fault. And Marion, the nurse's fault, because she says, but evil dies tonight. And when I first heard it, now I blamed Tommy for this, but when I first heard her say it, I thought, oh God, there it is. And I feel like that line right there, evil dies tonight, is, which it didn't, or at least it didn't in this movie. You feel at some point it's got to be past midnight, so it might not have happened. But that's what this movie is most known for, like notoriously known for in a negative way. Evil dies tonight. just oofa. Whenever I hear it now, it drives me up a wall. And sometimes it happens in ways like it's even worse than I thought. I always blamed, Tommy for this mantra, this dumb mantra, but so he goes out with the bat, and I do like that he's not afraid. He's ready to end this. He's like, I'm ready to get this mofo out of my life. The car turns on, the stereo turns on. He's like, come on. He starts hitting the car. And I was like, dude, that's my car. If I was the husband there, I never remember their names. They're a husband and wife in this movie. But the car just takes off and drives sporadically, crashes into an electricity pole, whatever you call it, electrical pole. They go over, of course they go over, and it's empty. But we see that it's the other escaped inmate, not the murdering one, just this guy. And this guy's annoying. The fact that this guy's in the movie is annoying. The fact of what happens to this guy in the movie is annoying. The fact of how people react to this guy in the movie is annoying. This whole thing almost becomes like a major part of like what happens, and I hate it. Am I right? I believe I hate it. So okay, we cut over, and I completely 100% forgot about these two dudes in this movie. It's Big John and Little John. Now, I like both these guys. Okay, I've seen them mostly in comedies. Michael McDonald, he directs a ton of TV. I first knew of him from Mad TV. Scott McArthur, the first time I remember seeing him was on The Mick, a short-lived but very funny show that was on Fox, starring Caitlin Olsen from Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I think he was in that El Camino Breaking Bad movie. I think he was also in Breaking Bad as well. But anyway, they live in a house that looks pretty familiar. They're hanging out when the doorbell rings, and a girl plays a prank on them. She's like, my friend swallowed. Remember I said there were little shits? Well, here they are. My friend swallowed a razor blade, and they go out to check on him. It's like, oh my God. While they do that, another kid in one of the Silver Shamrock masks. In fact, I believe these kids, we don't see them all in them, but these kids have all three masks. So he goes into the house and steals the candy. I'm like, these little pricks, they should be arrested. And also, what are they doing? I wrote it here. What are they doing out? Cell phones are invented. They should know what's going on. The whole town should be like alerts. You get Amber alerts on your phone. You can get emergency alerts on your phone. It doesn't have to be a text. It doesn't have to be, you're browsing social media. You could get a pop. It'll just pop up automatically. Shelter in place, get home. No. 1988, I wrote 1978, totally would get this. 1988, fine. 1998 even. But 2018, I mean, it is ridiculous. So anyway, they try to scare these kids. And the two, I could get the two grown-ups, the two adults, they're putting down their phones, they're having a nice evening, listening to music, maybe watching a movie. I could get that somewhat. But anyway, they try to scare the kids. They're like, don't you know whose house this is? They're like, no. And they start telling them about Michael Myers. Don't you know who he is? And they're not scared. And he's like, oh yeah. And I'm saying this because this is how he said it. He goes, well, he stabbed his sister in the tits right upstairs. And using that line on the kid seemed to freak him out. He goes, sometimes we can still hear him in the wind calling out her name, or still hear her name calling out in the wind. I don't know what it was. But anyway, that does scare them away. And we jump back over to the hospital. Now, we don't see them for a while after this, I think. Again, I almost forget about them. And then I'm like, oh, yeah, they're back. Back at the hospital, Officer Hawkins shows up alive. And Allison, I feel like she should be a little more surprised than she shows. Like, she's like, oh, he's alive. Like, I feel like she should be like, what the hell's going on? And another dumb thing in this movie that I hate, she looks into a morgue with wide open windows, dead bodies just strewn about. She sees the tag. I think she sees the tag for the doctor, New Loomis, just like, oh, there's his corpse. That's so dumb. And it comes up again with another kid, one of the kid we see, Oscar. We see his mom looking later, and just see her face, her son ripped to shreds. right out there in the open. Now I understand when there's like a panic going on that maybe accidentally something is done once, but it seems like in this hospital it's just left wide open, and like nobody writing the script would say, why would it be open? They're like, no, it is open because it's, why is it open? Because it's open. They can see them because it's open. There's no logic. It's, we need this to happen, so we're going to write it because this is what happened. Does it make sense? No. Would it happen? No. But we're going to write it that way because it does happen and it needs to happen for our story. I hate that. That is dumb. So a cop actually ends up asking Allison, can I have some more questions? They're talking to Karen too. And she was told, she says, I was always told not to talk about it. My grandmother and Michael Myers. And Karen's also being talked about. It sounds like she's actually blaming her mother. She's like, she put him in our path. He murdered my husband. There's just a lack of consistency with Karen's character. And some of the logic that she has with the hospital and her daughter. And I wrote down notes. I'll get to it. But it's, to me, extremely poor writing. Where the last movie gave us a right, and it's two of the three writers. There's a there's a different dude writing it this time, but we have, the Gordon Green, David Gordon Green, Danny McBride, they're back. Now we got some dude named Scott Teems. I don't know. I think he's written some other horror things, but the fact that he was brought into this movie makes me think, oh, maybe the last guy was there to be like, hey, this doesn't make any sense, or hey, why would she do this? I understand in the last movie she doesn't trust her mother. She doesn't believe these things are should happen, but then they do happen. And then she says she makes some really dumb choices, really dumb thoughts in this movie, and her ultimate, her like where she ends up in this movie is dumb. So much dumb in this movie, and we're not even at the dumb point yet. She just said, she just didn't trust her. Like, not that she didn't trust her mother, but she was like, she put her in our path. It's like, it's almost like she doesn't, like I said, she's blaming them, and I don't know. It bothers me. So, they said, oh, this is what they said. They go, how did Michael know where to go? How did Michael know where to go to grandmother's house? Don't get me started with grandmother. And Allison's like, he didn't know. It was the doctor. It was his obsession. And I'm racking my brain going, what? And they use this later. They go, no, he wasn't even a connection with Laurie. Like my Jaws cup. For those of you not watching on YouTube, I have a Jaws cup that I got through Fright Rags. I think I've talked about this last time. And I'm wearing a flowery shirt. I don't know. I bought this at Old Navy. And it's like, it just makes me feel like I'm going to Hawaii, even though I'm on a couch in Massachusetts. I'm not even on a couch. I'm at a kitchen table in Massachusetts. Yum, yum, yum. Drinking Pepsi Zero. I made myself with my Soda Stream. You can all advertise if you want. No one's going to. So anyway, so she says, how did Michael know where to go? And Allison's like, oh, he didn't know where to go. It was a doctor's obsession. And I'm thinking, huh? Okay, so the doctor drove him on a road. And I'm trying to make sense of this. The doctor drove him on a road. He got out with the police officer. They killed the police officer, put him in the car, drove him some more. He got out, killed the doctor, and then Allison ran through the woods to the house. How did Michael know from there? Well, which house is Laurie's? Where am I going? What's going on here? So you're saying the doctor drove him, half a mile away, and he just said, it's got to be one of these houses. And the first one he found, like, it doesn't, that logic, which they use as a kind of a major part of this movie. It's not about him trying to find Laurie. It's about him. I mean, we've watched the movie. It's about him going home. It ultimately ends up at his home. This is not about Laurie at all. Where they said originally, they said the first movie is about Laurie and Michael Myers. The second movie is about the people of Haddonfield and Michael Myers. I read that somewhere. But now they're saying, oh, it has nothing to do with Laurie, really. It's just he wanted to go home. Really? He wasn't even looking for her? It was just happy accident, like, hey, I know you. I don't know. I'm just not sure I'm buying it. So I like the Karen's with the sheriff, and she just in this movie. And I'm wondering, did the term Karen come from this movie? I know it didn't, but Jesus, she's like, we got him. We shot him in the face. We left him to burn him alive. And she's so proud that she killed him. There's a lot of this movie. Laurie's like, yeah, we did it. We killed Michael Myers. And the cop's like, I'm sorry, Karen. No one told you? And at that moment, they both find out. At that moment, like, what the F? They go find out that Michael Myers is still alive. Karen tells Allison, go sit with grandmother. Go into grandmother's room. And 2 seconds before, she said Laurie put them in the path. And now she says, go sit with your grandmother. Like, I'm sorry, maybe keep some distance. And that comes up more in this movie. And it pisses me off. Well, I shouldn't say it pisses me off because it's just a movie. It bothers me because it's dumb. So, and I said again, I hate grandmother. I hate it so much. Cameron shows up. He's like, he apologized to Allison. Now, okay. In the grand scheme of things, she forgives him because there's a lot of murdering going on. So I understand real life stuff is happening. And he's like, look, you should come with me. Me, my dad, and Tommy, we're going to go Michael Myers hunting. And she's like, yes, that's great. And Karen says, no, you shouldn't be doing that. Michael Myers is on the way to this hospital. So let's stay here and protect your grandmother. What? If anything, I'd be like, okay, have everyone protect your grandmother. But if Michael Myers is coming here, you need to go away from here. Now, don't go hunting him, but don't stay here you stay with your grandmother and wait until the killer comes. What? That drives me nuts. It's the dumbest thing. I actually wrote it down. Sit in the room and wait with your grandmother for the killer to arrive. Now, Missy. Oh my God. That annoyed me so much. So, by the way, Laurie didn't show up until 19 minutes in the movie. And she hasn't been awake still. I don't know exactly what time we are in this movie, but it's been a while. So Allison's like, I'll go in and see grandmother. She sits down and remember the knife that she had on the truck. And I think we got a little flashback to remind people because everyone assumes people are dumb. She has the knife. She's like, I still got this. And she wraps it up and leaves it with grandmother. I said, this is for you, grandmother, in case you need it. Kisses her on the forehead and leaves. So we jump over to Tommy and Lonnie. They're outside the hospital, and Tommy mentions there are 11 dead. 11 dead from over at Laurie's compound. He even knows it's a compound. And he says they're all first responders. And you have to remember, that includes, so I said there were 7 or 5, I think. I'm not sure. 5, 6, 7, I think. He said 11, so that'd be 4 more. There were the 2 cops. There was the doctor and maybe a couple other people. But I'm still counting those 5 cops. So the first responders include some previous murders from the previous movie. So they're ready to all come together and take Michael out. That includes the married couple. That includes Nurse Marion. That includes Lindsay, and Allison shows up too. And she's like, we're all going to do it. And Tommy, they start just going around and just alerting the town because, again, no one has a cell phone. No one has the internet. Nobody talks to each other. It's just, it feels like it was written for a different time and written to just ignore the norms of today's society. So Tommy just starts going to gas stations. I'm looking for people, strong people, good people. I'm looking for people who want to fight and kill a murderer. Who's with me? And what I did notice this time around is there's a bench in the background. And it's kind of cute. It's Big John and Little John together on a bench. And I'm assuming they're realtors. Meanwhile, Lonnie's driving around with Cameron and Allison, and they're yelling at people, get in your house. Get in your house. It's not safe. And the people are like, what? Like, what are they on their front lawn listening to their phonograph? I mean, what year is this? We see Lindsay, Marion, and the doctor are dressed. Oh, the doctor dressed like a nurse and the nurse dressed like a doctor, the married couple. They're out doing their own thing while Tommy continues to organize. We haven't seen Michael Myers in over 15 minutes. No idea where he is. But the foursome of Lindsay, Marion, and the husband and wife, they notice some kids playing off in the playground all alone now. We didn't realize it's those same cocky little shits that were with the Johns. And they actually was kind of funny. She runs over and she tells them, you got to go home. And they're like, there's a guy here with a white mask. I think he's a pervert. He just keeps staring at us. And there he is. And Lindsay turns and sees Michael Myers. He's like, hi, I'm over here. And he's holding a knife and he's holding a silver shamrock mask. He's holding that skull mask. And there was the same kids, the mask that one of the kids had earlier. Now I realize there's only two of these kids. And like, that's Dennis's mask. So Dennis is dead. Again, we're in the current time. Michael Myers kills children now. In 78 he didn't, but in 2018 he likes to kill the kids. So we're at a kill count of 10 now. So he's like, get the hell out of here, go home. They run. Michael's is like, oh my God, Marion's in that car. Just for old time's sake, he jumps on the car like it's 1978. It's a little on the nose, but okay. Marion just starts shooting, starts shooting all over the place. Michael grabs her, rips her hair, but the wife falls out of the car. Oh my God. I'm the more dumb is coming. Get ready. The husband tries to get Marion out. Meanwhile, Lindsay is putting bricks in a sleeping bag. One of the kids left a sleeping bag behind for trick-or-treating. So she's putting bricks in, and Marion goes, hey, Michael. And she has the gun and goes, this is for Dr. Loomis, and goes to shoot without any bullets. And I'd be like, why did she say that? What do you mean it's for Dr. Loomis? Like, they caught him that night. Loomis won. Loomis died thinking, I won. He's dead. He's in jail at least. And even Michael's like, why did you say that? That's very awkward. Oh, you don't have any bullets? Stab, stab, stab. And she is dead. Kill count 11. Now the nurse guy intervenes. He's like, hey, what are you doing? He tries to choke Michael with his stethoscope. Michael's like, oh my God, your stethoscope. Hold on, let me grab this knife and put it through your eye. You're dead. Kill count number 12. Now we get one of the dumbest kills in this entire movie. Gunshots, okay? We get the doctor wife who's dressed like a nurse. She starts shooting. She mentioned she had experience with guns earlier, but apparently it's shooting guns. It's not hitting targets because she's missing everything. So here is the dumbest thing. She gets near the car, okay? She puts her gun out. Michael kicks the car door, okay? It hits her hand, and her hand turns, and she's like, oh no, well, I'm going to shoot now. Shoots herself in the face. Okay, I'm counting this because Michael, he kicked the door and the door killed her. Even though she technically died of being dumb, I'm counting this murder because he knew exactly the moment. He's like, let me just time this and kick, shoot, dead. So kill count 13. So I'm thinking like Tommy's putting together this team of elite people. And right now, none of it's working out because there's a foursome that's now a onesome. And who's that onesome? It's Lindsay. She comes out of nowhere with a brick bag and smashes Michael in the face, and he barely reacts. He starts choking her. She's going to be dead, but she reaches for the mask and pulls it off him, and he's like, no, I'm ugly. Like, that's the one thing he will not stand for. And that distracts him enough that she runs off and gets away. She runs, but, I love that she's running, and he's just like, I'm walking slowly. I'm not going to use up my cardio. I'm not going to, empty my system. You'll keep running. You'll get tired and I'll just be right behind you, ready when it happens. And so Lindsay's hiding and Michael's looking around, and I thought it would have been funny if all of a sudden Lindsay's like, oh no. And Michael's like, I found you. You're dead. But Michael instead walks over this beautiful little bridge and I guess just keeps on walking. And as far as we know, Lindsay lives to see another day. We cut back to the hospital and Laurie wakes up and she's like, where's Allison? And Karen's like, she's in the other room, but she sees a card that she left behind. She's like, she leaves a card behind saying, I've got to go do this, blah, blah, blah. And instead, Karen starts complaining, what are people with all these bloody shirts? So she takes the shirt, which of course has the knife and it doesn't notice it, puts it in this hamper bag, and we're thinking, okay, that's going to come back, right? And with the whole hospital, everything going on, Officer Hawkins is suddenly wheeled into the exact same room. He's in recovery. We jump over. Lonnie, Allison, and Cameron are driving. They come across Tommy, who came across Lindsay in the empty car. And Lonnie was like, before that, though, Lonnie was telling Allison a funny story about her dad. Tommy's like, I don't know what's going on. There's blood, but there's no body. Well, we know that 3 of them are dead. We know. So what does Michael do, the little prankster? They go and for some reason they start splitting up in 2 different groups for some dumb reason. But they walk near the playground, and then all of a sudden they come together and they see 2 dead bodies in the silver shamrock masks, the husband and the wife, and they're on this little merry-go-round turny thing. And there's Marion hanging in the 3rd shamrock mask. And like they're dead. And Tommy's just like, I'm gonna get you. He doesn't freak out or cry, go, oh my God, oh, my friends are dead. We're not gonna be able to have that, that drink next year. Not most of you. Some of you may. Well, actually, I'm not gonna get ahead of myself, Tommy. So they find Lindsay, who's freaking out. She's like, I saw his face. But you did? I feel like you saw his mask, and you kind of like, you pulled half of it off. And the fact that all this is going on, and the 2 teenagers, Allison and Cameron, are not constantly pissing and shitting themselves, because that not like literally, but I would just be completely a mess. I'd be like, I want my mommy. I want to go home. I want to go back to the hospital. Speaking of back to the hospital, Laurie's now talking about Frank, and apparently they almost hooked up back in the day. Actually, it wasn't even that back in the day. I think it was just at one point after what happened. She was like, I was so messed up, and he helped her. He always liked her, and she always liked him. And they kissed once, but nothing more. And she was drunk, but he knew that she was sweet on Ben Tramer. And I'm thinking, well, shit. At least Ben Tramer in this timeline is alive. He didn't get run over, didn't get exploded. And she tells him, she's like, we did it, by the way. We killed Michael. And he's like, yes, that's great. Wonderful news. And you and I are just like, oh, you friggin' idiots. Nobody asks. So then a nurse comes in and gives Hawkins some pain medicine, and they focus, because they want to just telegraph things. They focus on the medicine a little bit. So I'm like, okay, I'm sure that's going to be used later. Something's going to be pointed out that's important later. We jump back over. We see Tommy's gang is together. For a moment, they're tending to Lindsay, and they're talking about how they used to dare him to go into the Myers house. And Lonnie's like, I actually never did that. I lied. I didn't go in. That scene seems really weird to be right there, inserted there. They found Lindsay. They bring her over. They're like, oh, they're having a little quiet moment. All of them talking, not going anywhere, just kind of hanging out. And then the next time we see them, all of a sudden it's like they're going crazy, bringing Lindsay in the hospital. I'm getting ahead of myself, but we see Lee Brackett talking to the current sheriff. He's like, when I was a sheriff, I didn't have a chance to kill him. I was dealing with my daughter. He's like complaining about it. And the sheriff's like, okay, dude. Okay, old man. That's okay. And we now get to some real dumbness where people start kind of freaking out in the hospital. They're getting restless while they're waiting for more cops to come from neighboring cities because they can't handle it themselves. And Oscar's mom is there. She's like, have you seen my son? His name is Oscar. And it's like, no, your son is a gate now. Well, even though we know he's not, we think he's just still hanging on the gate, hanging out. But he's at the gates. He's at the pearly gates now, actually. So Tommy runs in with Lindsay. Now, 2 seconds ago, they're just hanging out by the car and talking good old times. But now he runs in with Lindsay, and she gets wheeled away. We don't see Lindsay for the rest of the movie. He talks to Karen, and he wants, and Karen still wants her daughter back at the hospital because Michael's coming there. You need to stay here because this is where the killer is coming. So dumb. And was it Tommy? I wrote down the boogeyman is at large. Somebody said that. It happened. Oh, and he didn't say, oh, by the way, these people are dead. That never comes up. But he starts telling people the boogeyman's at large. He's like, the cops aren't doing anything. So he's telling you, I'm going to go kill a guy in front of the sheriff. And it doesn't seem to have any effect on anybody. People start yelling, evil dies tonight. Evil dies tonight. The chant happens and no one sits there and goes, this is stupid, right? Tommy rushes. He rushes into Laurie and he gives more exposition. And he says, Laurie, Marion is dead. But I'll protect you the way you protected me 40 years ago when I was a kid. Like he says that to her. Laurie's like, I know I was there, but it's like, in case we forgot. And she's like, Tonight we fight. Go and find him, Tommy. Go. It's like, and Laurie's doing nothing. She never leaves. I think she goes in the hall for a couple times. She tries to stop Laurie from getting up and doing anything, but Laurie, remember that pain medicine I told you was going to come back? She's like, she screams like it's the worst thing in the world. It's just a shot. Just kind of don't jam it in. Just put it in. And maybe she just had to jam it in. But she's like, she takes the shot and she's like, look, I told you it would come back. And she says, maybe for him to die, I have to die too. And I was like, that's some real dumb shit right there. That's some real stupid like thing to say. So all of a sudden, Hawkins wakes up. He's like, what's going on? And Laurie knows where the knife is, I guess. It was in the hamper. Maybe it was on the chair. I don't know. But she grabs the knife. I mean, there's just so much nothing going on in this movie. And then we go back to the Johns. Remember the Johns? We cut back to them. Someone's knocking at their back door. You know what? This should, like, I think Michael just goes here. Because they go to the front door, they go to the back door. Someone's in the back door. We see a bloody handprint, and it's like someone's in our house. And Big John like takes off his rings and grabs a knife. Little John grabs a knife. I'm like, you jerks, run! You still don't know what's going on. And it gets even worse with them. So in the hospital, there's all this craziness going on, and that other inmate who escaped, he's like, help me, help me, help me. And all of a sudden, people are like, is that Michael? Like there's commotion, so they can't see what's going on. All led by Tommy, who should have charges put up on him, and if he had a chance to have it put up on him. But they all think it's Michael. They can't see him. It's so dumb, and people still yell, "Evil dies tonight!" Like at one point, I don't even know if this is the part where like there's the GIF that I tweeted out. It's like, "Excuse me, evil dies tonight!" Like he climbs over some people to chase after this guy in the hospital. Oh, it's so dumb. So back at the old house with the Johns, there's a lot of creeping going. And I like this kind of stuff where you go into rooms, you're creeping, and then Michael pops out. Michael does pop out. He takes Big John, squeezes his head. Little John's are right there. His husband is right killed in front of him. And he goes, Michael, you've come home. Like that's his response. Dude, what? That's what you say? That is so friggin' dumb. And now he's dead too, because you hear, Michael kills them both. And we're at the kill count of 15. Back at the hospital, it's complete anarchy. They're chasing what they think is Michael Myers, and it's just some guy. Laurie's trying to tell them it's not him, it's not him. And I remember thinking when this first happened, like this was kind of, this mob mentality was in reference to those assholes on January 6th at the Capitol. But it just must have been what I got out of it, because this was filmed way before that ever happened. So Laurie actually fights off a guy, all the commotion, but she gets knocked over. And then at that point, that's when Oscar's mom looks into the stupid morgue room that's stupid right there. Dead bodies lying right there. So dumb. And she's like, no. We see his ripped face. He's like, I'm dead, mama. This entire scene is ridiculously ludicrous. A doctor shoves Karen out of the way to run away. They're basically chasing some other dude while way over at John and John, they're getting brutally murdered. Tommy punches a cop to get through. Laurie thinks this chaos, he's like, this chaos is all part of Michael's masterpiece. Like, what? Michael doesn't care about this or know about this at all. He's just a simple dude trying to kill people. He's not trying to create anything else. Oh my God. It's like, do these people even know what they're doing with this? They took such, and I hear it only gets worse, but they took such a good movie, a good, simple movie, and they tried to, I don't know what they tried to do with it. They tried to expand upon it and made it worse. Hawkins is like, it's not your fault. I could have killed him. It's mine. And then we get another flashback, and we see that, of course, he took the shot. Remember we said he took the shot, but he killed the guy by accident. We see continuation of that flashback where a cop knocks Michael down. And, actually, this is two different points, two different things. So first, we see him come out, and Loomis is about to, for some reason, all these police are on, but Loomis has the gun. They knock Michael over. He takes the gun. He's like, I'm going to shoot you. That's not Loomis. But he's about to shoot him. And the other cop Hawkins grabs his hand and points it up in the air. And he's like, he couldn't let him kill him. He's like, I still thought there was a person in there. Someone's baby boy was in there. But now I know it's pure evil. It needs to die. So Karen, out of everyone, finds the man who's hiding. While the crowd, they're not quite there yet. She's like, come on, I'm not going to hurt you. Come with me. And she locks him in a hallway. And she's like, you'll be fine in here. Don't worry. And then the stupid crowd of stupid assholes smash through. The guy seems all alone in this chaos. And people are yelling, evil dies tonight. Some mom, evil dies tonight. They're smashing windows. And he's like, you know what? Not me. He's like, he thinks they're coming for him. Well, they are. They just think he's Michael Myers. He smashes a window. He jumps. He falls to his death. The crowd, they're still chanting. And of course, they have to show the gross broken body. And Tommy goes downstairs and Brackett's like, it's not him. It's not him. And Tommy's like, well, how do we know it's not him? We've only seen him wearing a mask. I'm like, did the mask make him a foot and a half taller, Tommy? I wrote, you stupid asshole. Tommy Doyle, he's this cute little kid in Halloween. Now in the original timeline, we see Tommy Doyle again as Paul Rudd. A little creepy the way he stares, but all in all, he is a good character. Anthony Michael Hall is a good actor too, but and it's not him. He's doing exactly what is asked of him, and these guys just ruined and made me hate Tommy Doyle, this character. The fact that he's like, I said he should be charged with manslaughter. This entire group of people should be named in some sort of wrongful death suit. The hospital should be sued. The town should be sued. This family, if he has any next of kin, they would be sitting on a bank roll or whatever is money. And they're like, evil dies tonight. And I feel like my brain cells are dying tonight. And someone said, now he's turning us into monsters. I was like, oh, it's so poignant. But that death's not going on the kill count because Michael didn't do it. Those paranoid, mob of douchebags did it. So we go to another flashback, and that's where we see that Hawkins is telling, I only tried to do the right thing. And this cop is like, look, we'll just cover it up. We'll say that Pete shot himself by accident trying to take Michael out. In reality, it's not like, an innocent man was killed. He was good. If Hawkins didn't take the shot, McCabe was dead. Hawkins took the shot, trying to save him. It didn't work out. But so I don't mind this cover up all that much. I'm sure that he's living with guilt, but if he hit the shot, and his guilt also is also not letting Loomis kill Michael Myers. But the whole cover up thing, it isn't like, oh my God, that I can't believe that happened. It's like, all right, that happened. So Laurie thinks, he's coming here for me. And Hawkins is like, he's a killer. The doctor took him to your house. And I'm like, did he? Kinda. It's like, he talks about how he heard Michael would stare out the window, but maybe he was just looking at his own reflection. And I was like, that is some bullshit. But Hawkins says he wants one thing. Oh, he's talking about Michael. Michael wants one thing, and that's home. And you're like, oh, he's just like E.T. Michael Myers, stab home. It'd be awesome at the end if Laurie's crying and Michael goes, I'll be right here. And then he stabs her. Anyway, we go to the home. Who do we see outside the Myers house? We see Lonnie, Cameron, and Allison. And I don't know, why is he there? Why did they go there? I forget. But Tommy's like, look, and he talks to Karen. He's like, I'm sorry, but I'm going down swinging. And he's with Karen, and she's like, I think they're all going to start going to the Myers house. They're heading there because Hawkins said it to Laurie. Laurie said it to Karen. Karen said it to Tommy. So they're heading there. And Lonnie and Cameron, I don't even know. But Lonnie's like, all right, listen, if anything happens to me, I'm going in alone. I'll be right back. And he knocks on the door and he goes in and boom, right away, a gunshot. And Cameron and Allison are like, what? So they rush in. So this is like kind of not quite the grandstand, but kind of. Allison opens the door, shoots a pumpkin in a closet. They go upstairs and they find the two dead Johns posed in the same way that there was a photo of theirs because Michael's a prankster. Then she takes the knife out of Little John, ready to use it. Cameron's in another room approaching a closet and he sees bleeding. He looks up and he sees his dad. He sees that Lonnie is gone. And I was just like, oh, he's dead and smushed in the attic space. Kill count 16. But right after he sees his dad is dead, Michael comes out of nowhere, stabby. Allison comes out and actually stabs and fights Michael, but he throws her down the stairs. It looks like she almost breaks or twists an ankle. And thankfully, Cameron's still alive. He's still alive. And then Michael smashes him over and over and over and over and over and over. And twists. Oh, and you think maybe he's still alive. He's like, Michael comes around on the steps. He's like, twist, boom, breaks his neck. And now Cameron is dead too. Kill count now at 17. And we're not close. There is many more deaths to come. Don't you worry. But now Allison is inches away. Michael's inches away from stabbing Allison. And she's like, do it. I'm like, what? But then you realize she's not talking to Michael. She's talking to her mom. And her mom's like, I will do it. And she takes a friggin' pitchfork and stabs Michael in the back. There was a pitchfork on the front lawn, in the front porch, the decoration of the Johns house. So she probably should have stabbed him more than once, but stabs him, kicks him in the head, takes his mask off. He gets right up, but we still don't see his face. She's like, you want your mask? You want your mask? Come and get it. Now, this was end up being, I don't know why they thought it would work. Because if he wants to go home, he's home. He could just be like, no, I'll stay here. Let me close the door, kill your daughter, and just, relax until more people come and I'll kill them too. But he's like, I guess he wants the mask really bad. She's like, I'm an innocent woman, just like your sister. Come and get it. And it actually works. He gets him to chase her. Now she runs. He just kind of shambles. That was the plan, I suppose. He slowly chases her over to the next street, and the mask is just lying there in the road. And he goes to pick it up, and all these car lights turn on. And you realize he's surrounded. And then Karen says, gotcha. Now, this is the second or third time that Karen's prematurely celebrating the death of Michael Myers? Or I just don't, like, she's like, gotcha, like so matter-of-factly. And I do like that we don't see his full face. We never see his full face, but you do see part of it's burned up pretty bad. And then a bunch of people are there. And one person's the old Sheriff Brackett, now security guard Brackett. He's got a gun. He says, hey, Michael, it's Halloween. Everyone's entitled to one good scare. Now, if I heard that man say that, I'd be like, the hell is he talking about? Like, nobody turns and goes, where'd you come up with that? Because actually, I thought about it in 1978 because that was his line from the first movie. And he says it again because apparently that's his go-to line. Like, there's something about, referencing things. But again, logically, why would he say that? The 40 years, he said it to his daughter and Laurie, kind of like, hey, it's Halloween. Everyone's entitled to one good scare, like a fun little thing, which then was kind of a foreshadowing to the terror of that night. But now it's like, oh, that's my thing. And no one here is going to know what to make sense. And everyone's like, I'd be like, what did he say? And who is he? Oh, he used to be the chief. Oh, okay. Why did he say that? I don't know. But for us, it's like, oh, he said the line. I don't know. So we get a group of these Haddon files, and they're ready to beat Michael's ass down. So Michael's like, F it. So he's like, let me put my mask back on. He bends over, puts his mask back on, and they just start beating his ass. And he's like stabbing. There's no swish. I know in previous movies we heard the, but he starts stabbing, and they're just beating his ass over and over. Like, he's swinging, but he's not getting to anybody. And they're beating his ass down to the ground. Finally, Karen gets up, stabs him right in the back, right in the shoulder. And when that happens, we cut back to the hospital. And Laurie is talking to Hawkins. And while she's doing that, we get this little voiceover of the crime scene where Michael's being taken down. So while we see this crime scene going on, and we see Laurie has this voiceover. She said, I always thought Michael Myers was flesh and bone, like you and me. But a mortal man could not have survived what he's lived through. The more he kills, the more he transcends into something else impossible to defeat. Fear. People are afraid. That is the true curse of Michael. You can't defeat it with brute force. And I was like, okay, that's a little mumbo jumbo-y, but okay. Hawkins is like, if we only knew then what we know now. And okay. So while that's going on, Allison is with her mom. She said, he'll always be here, won't he? Even when we can't see him. And Brackett and Tommy go over to look at the body that was left exactly like it was, with a knife and conveniently in its back. Nobody over there. They're dealing with, like, I think they're over at the old John's house, the Myers house, not the street over where Michael is. And Michael's just lying there. And they're like, you know what? He's dead. We did it. And Michael's like, no, I'm not. He grabs the knife out of his own shoulder, I think, and he throws it. I think he throws it at Brackett, killing him. He's dead. He kills some dude in a tiger costume. In that tiger costume, I'm not gonna say he deserves it, but he kills 2 other random guys, then kills 2 more. Then I think he kills 2 more, I think. Now, this is where things just get really, really, really weird. So Karen leaves Allison to look up into the Myers house. Like, she starts walking into the Myers house. Now, I want to remind you. I'm sorry. Before she does that, she leaves Allison and she looks outside into the Myers house and into the sister's old bedroom. And she sees a kid dressed as a clown, or at least we see a kid dressed as a clown. A vision that all of a sudden is not there. And I'm like, what the hell is that? What's going on here? So Tommy watches as we cut back. Tommy watches as 8 people get slaughtered. And still, he goes in with the bat. He's like, okay, I'm coming. And he goes, and then boom, stab. Stab, stab, stab. Then he gets smashed with his own bat. Tommy did get to look him straight into the eye, in his eyes for one moment, but all he saw was black. Nothing. Kill count 26. And we get more of a voiceover. Laurie says, if they don't stop him tonight, maybe we'll find him tomorrow or next Halloween when the sun sets and someone is alone. Very dramatic. So Karen, for some reason, walks in to the Myers house. Now she walks right past all the cops dealing with her daughter, all the stuff outside. Lonnie and Cameron are still exactly where we left them. I don't see any police tape. I don't see anyone dealing with it. Nothing. There's 2 dead bodies, and she just walks up and doesn't seem to even care. Like, she just walks by. Allison looks over her shoulder, is like, oh, okay. I guess mom's going upstairs for something. Maybe she has to use the bathroom. I don't know. But nobody seems to notice what's going on. Laurie says, you can't close your eyes and pretend he isn't there. Karen goes right over to the Judith Myers bedroom window. She looks out the window and she sees her own reflection. Ooh. And Laurie says, because he is. So all of a sudden, she's by the bedroom window. Michael is right there. She turns and screams and gets stabbed to death. Nobody noticed. I don't know how he got from the street, walked over, went up to the house. He knows the back door. There's no cops down there, nothing. Nobody noticed him go by everything and just kill this woman because they're all idiots. And we cut between her getting stabbed, Laurie in the hospital. And then Michael looks out the window and we see his reflection. Is he looking out or is he really looking at himself? Ooh, because remember they said that. Oh, and Karen is lying there dead. Kill count 27. The movie ends with Michael just breathing as he stands there. And then boom, Halloween kills. And yes, it kills. It killed my spirit. So the credits roll and we get the classic Halloween theme. And then we get Hunter's Moon. If you don't know Hunter's Moon, it's from one of my favorite bands over these last few years, Ghost. This version is actually quite different from the one on their album. I love this band. I do like it, but I like the album version, I think, a little better. The last thing I wrote down is it's over. As much as I hated a lot of this movie, there was some fun stuff, at least. From what I hear, it's about to get even worse. Hooray. So they do have the payoff, the setup of, oh, he just wants to go home. That was used a couple times. The whole thing of him looking out the window, whatever. I like the flashback stuff. I like how it was done. I even thought the digital Loomis was pretty good too. And I think that was pretty much most of what I liked. I like seeing the Silver Shamrock masks. I liked the characters of the Johns, but the way it was like, Michael, you've come home. Dumb. Tommy Doyle, Anthony Michael Hall, who I like. It just, his whole story arc was awful. And the whole Evil Dies Tonight was awful. And you bring in these people and they just get killed pretty quick. The whole hospital thing with the other guy in the mob, terrible. I think I get what they were going for, but I just don't need it in a Halloween movie. I didn't need it in this. I didn't need this whole thing where it's not even about Michael. Mike's not even there. It's them dealing with what they think is Michael. I didn't like it at all. But this shirt looks good, right? I still feel like Hawaiian. And Laurie's barely in it. She barely does anything. It's just like, I feel like this is mostly almost like Anthony Michael Hall is like one of the biggest part of this movie. And his whole thing with Evil Dies Tonight was just freaking dumb. And then, of course, they kill off Judy Greer. They kill off. So Laurie's now, her daughter's dead. Like, now we have to deal with that. Like, what? Where do you go from there? I guess you end it and Halloween ends. And that's what we're going to see next time. So I am interested to see how this all plays out. My goodness gracious. I'm curious. That's all I'll say is I'm curious. But that's not for another week or so. I got to gear myself up. And I'm wondering, should I watch it and then watch it again for notes? Like, do I dare put myself through it twice? And I think that's probably the right way to do it. I need to, because, both of these times, this is multiple watching. I've seen these movies before, and I feel like it helps. I don't want to just sit there and take notes. I want to absorb this movie as just watching a film, then come back, go through it, take my copious notes, too many notes. Maybe I should take less notes. I tried to, but this had like 16 pages of notes, and they're bullet points. It's not like long, drawn out things. But I don't want to do that watching this movie for the first time. I want to just absorb it. And maybe even after that, I'll just hit record and talk. Like, maybe I won't go through it step by step because I'll just hate it so much. Who knows? We'll see. That's the fun of this. There are no rules with this podcast. It's just, I want to talk about horror movies, and I want to talk about every Halloween movie. And after this, I've got one more to do. So I'm excited about that. Listen, my friends, I want to thank you for sticking with the show. I want to thank you for watching it, listening, subscribing, all that fun stuff. If it's on YouTube, I hope you follow us. The YouTube channel is Fans Not Experts. The website is fansnotexperts.com. But if you're on Twitter, or you're on X, or whatever the hell it's called, if you're on we're /horror, you can follow me on Twitter, X. I'm not going to call it X. On Twitter, Instagram, and Threads at Geek Mentality. And that is it. 12 Halloweens down. Lucky 13 right around the corner. Ooh. I think this one's on Amazon Prime. So I gotta go watch it there, which I will, I suppose. So that's it. That's all. I'm done. Remember, evil dies tonight. Thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing. And until next time, you have to remember, it's fun to be scared. Evil dies tonight. So dumb.
Fans Not Experts.